The scream in the trap. The forest was quiet. No wind, no birds, no sound. Only the crunch of dry leaves under the man's boots. He moved slowly, carefully, holding a small scanner in his hand. His name was Jake, a human hunter exploring a distant, alien world for food and supplies. Jake had set up many traps the night before. He wasn't hunting for sport. He needed food to survive. He had been stuck on this planet since his ship crashed. Supplies were running low. Suddenly, his scanner beeped. Something, or someone, had triggered one of his traps. He quickly turned and followed the signal. It came from the northern trap, the one near the rocky hill. As he walked faster, he heard it. A sound he didn't expect. A scream. Not an animal growl. Not a beast's roar. It was a scream. High-pitched, full of fear, like a child crying. Jake stopped for a second. His heart raced. He ran now. When he reached the trap, he gasped. Caught in the net was not a beast, but a girl. A young alien girl. Her body was small and thin. She had fur covering her arms and shoulders. Her big green eyes were wet with tears. She kicked and pulled, trying to escape the net, but only got more tangled. Jake froze. She screamed again and shouted something in a language he didn't understand. Then she looked at him, her eyes filled with terror. She began to cry harder and said in broken English, "Please. No, eat me. Please, no, cook me." Jake blinked in shock. "What? No, I'm not gonna..." She covered her face with her arms and cried louder. Jake put down his weapon slowly. He raised both hands. Hey, I'm not going to hurt you." But she didn't trust him. She was shaking, sobbing, whispering the same words again and again. "No, eat me. No, eat me." Jake's heart ached. He had seen many strange things on this planet, but nothing like this. He moved closer, slowly. "I'm going to help you, okay?" She whimpered. Using his knife, he cut the rope net carefully. She flinched at every move. The trap fell open, and she curled into a ball on the ground, hugging her knees. Jake didn't touch her. He stepped back. The girl stayed on the ground, breathing fast, eyes wide with fear. "You're safe now," Jake said softly. "I'm not like the others." She looked up. "Others? Eat. My people." Jake's eyes widened. "What?" She nodded slowly. "Hunters, aliens, eat us. I run alone now." Jake realized the truth. Her species was herbivorous, peaceful plant eaters, and somewhere on this cruel planet, other predators had hunted her kind like food. She thought Jake was one of them. Jake pulled out a small protein bar from his bag. "Here, food, not meat. You can eat." She didn't move. He placed it on the ground and stepped back again. She looked at the bar. Her stomach growled loudly. But she still hesitated. Jake didn't push her. He just sat on a nearby rock, far from her, and watched the sky. The sun was going down. Minutes passed. Finally, she crawled slowly toward the food. She picked it up, sniffed it, and took a small bite. Her eyes widened. She ate faster now, finished it in seconds. Jake smiled a little. "Better?" She looked at him, still scared but not as much. "Name?" he asked, pointing to her, then to himself. "I'm Jake." She hesitated, then touched her chest. "Ilya." "Ilya." Jake nodded. "Nice to meet you." Ilya didn't answer. She just pulled her thin arms around her body, cold and tired. Jake took off his jacket and carefully placed it near her. Not on her. He knew she wasn't ready for that. She looked at it, then at him. He smiled kindly. "For you." She took it slowly, like it might bite her. But once she wrapped it around her, she stopped shivering. Jake didn't speak more. The night was coming fast. He made a small fire with dry wood, far enough not to scare her. The fire's glow warmed the air around them. Ilya sat still, silent, watching him. Jake could feel it. She didn't trust him yet. But she wasn't running anymore. That was a start. The fire crackled softly in the still night, casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. Jake sat beside it, adding one stick at a time, careful not to make it too large or loud. Across from him, Elia stayed curled up in his jacket, sitting behind a log as if it could protect her. She still didn't speak. She barely looked at him. But she hadn't run away. That meant something. Jake opened a pouch of dried fruit and placed a few pieces near her side of the fire. He didn't offer it directly. He had learned she feared fast movements. Everything he did now was slow and quiet. Elia peeked at the food, then back at Jake. Her thin fingers slowly reached for the fruit. She sniffed it, then nibbled one. When the taste hit her tongue, she froze. Her body trembled, but not in fear. This time, in hunger. She ate the rest quickly, cheeks puffed with bites like a squirrel hoarding nuts. Jake watched in silence. The look in her eyes told him one thing. She had not eaten properly in days. "You don't have to be afraid of me," Jake said gently. "I'm not one of those things that hurt your people." Elia didn't respond. Instead, she crawled a little closer to the fire, keeping the log between them. Her eyes studied him carefully now, not with fear but curiosity. Her fur-covered arms had scratches. Her toes were raw. He wondered how far she had walked, how long she had been alone. Then suddenly, she spoke. "Why not eat me?" Jake looked at her, shocked. "What?" Elia's voice was quiet but serious. "You catch me like others, you big, strong, I small, easy to eat." Jake frowned. "Because I'm not a monster." She tilted her head. "But you are meat eater." Jake nodded slowly. "Yes, I eat meat. But not people, not your kind, not anyone who talks. That's not who I am." Elia looked down, playing with a thread on the jacket. "Others, not same." Jake sighed. "I believe you, but I'm different." They sat in silence again. The wind blew gently through the trees. A leaf landed near her foot. She watched it spin before it stopped moving. Then, she spoke again. "You have home?" Jake shook his head. "My ship crashed. I'm stuck here. Been surviving for months." Elia blinked. "Alone?" Jake gave a weak smile. "Yeah, alone. Until now." She looked up at him. Her eyes had softened, just a little. Jake saw it, a wall beginning to crack. "I had friends," he added, "but they didn't make it. I buried them. After that, I just tried to stay alive. Traps, fire, small meals, not much else." Elia whispered, "I had family." Jake nodded slowly. "What happened?" She swallowed hard, her throat looked dry. "Hunters came, we ran. My father stayed behind to fight. My mother hid me in tree. Then she never came back." Jake felt his chest tighten. He said nothing. What could he say? "I walk," she continued. "Many days. Hide. No food. No water. Then, your trap." Jake whispered, "I'm sorry." She didn't cry. She just looked at the flames, eyes empty like the sky after a storm. Jake stood up slowly and walked over to a nearby rock. He unrolled a small sleeping pad and laid it out beside the fire. "You can rest here," he said. "I'll sleep over there." He pointed to a tree on the far side of the clearing. He knew she wouldn't sleep if he stayed too close. Elia didn't answer, but when he walked away, she stood. Carefully, silently, she crept to the pad. She lay down with the jacket wrapped tightly around her, eyes still open. Jake leaned against the tree, watching the stars through the branches. He thought about Earth, about how strange the universe could be, and about how fear, even between two intelligent beings, could be so powerful. He closed his eyes just for a moment. In the middle of the night, a noise made him wake up. He looked around, alert. The fire was low, almost out. But something had changed. Elia was gone. He jumped up. "Elia," he whispered. No answer. He scanned the area, eyes wide. Then he saw movement behind the trees. She hadn't run away. She had just stepped behind some bushes. She returned slowly, carrying something in her hands, a handful of bright purple berries. She placed them beside his pack. "For you," she said, voice soft. Jake stared, speechless. She was still afraid, still guarded, but she had brought him food. Trust had begun, and in a world of hunters and fear, that was everything. Morning sunlight slipped through the trees, golden and soft. Jake sat beside the fire, sharpening a stick for defense. Across the camp, Elia picked at the berries growing near the rocks. She was quiet, still unsure, but no longer shaking. The mower, night had changed something between them. She had brought him food and he hadn't pushed it away. That simple act had become a bridge between two lonely beings on a dangerous world. But fear, even when fading, never left completely. When Jake stood to stretch his back, his foot snapped a branch under him. The sound was small, but to Elia, it felt like thunder. She gasped and dropped the berries. Her eyes widened, breath caught in her throat. Then she bolted. "Elia, wait!" Jake called out, stepping forward with his hands raised. She didn't listen. She ran like her life depended on it because, to her, maybe it did. Jake cursed under his breath and chased her. The forest swallowed her small figure fast. She darted between trees, over roots, under branches. She was fast, even weak and hungry. But Jake had longer legs and knew this area. He kept his eyes on her fur and followed the trail she left behind. "Elia!" he shouted again. "Please, I didn't mean to scare you." Still no answer. She ran until the ground beneath her turned rough and rocky. Her steps slipped. She tried to climb a small hill, but her foot caught a stone and she tumbled. Jake reached her seconds later. She crawled backward, eyes full of panic, her back against a large tree. "Don't hurt me," she cried. "Please don't." Jake dropped to his knees in front of her. "I won't, I promise." His voice cracked with worry. "You just ran. I had to follow. You could have gotten hurt." Elia stared at him. Then her ears twitched. She looked past him, into the forest. Jake turned fast. He didn't need to ask why her face had changed. From the trees, glowing eyes appeared. 6. Then 8. Then more. The creatures were large, like wolves with scales instead of fur. They crept, low, silent, teeth sharp and eyes red. Predators. Jake stood up slowly and stepped in front of Elia. "Stay behind me." She clutched his coat from last night, still wrapped around her. The creatures growled, slowly circling them. Jake pulled the sharp stick from his belt. It was crude, but better than nothing. "Back off," he said firmly, though he knew they didn't understand words, only hunger. One of the beasts lunged. Jake swung hard and struck it in the side. It yelped and backed off. Another crept closer from the left. Jake grabbed a rock and threw it. It hit the creature's shoulder, and it snarled, but didn't leave. There were too many. Suddenly, an idea sparked. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small flare. It was meant to scare away night creatures. He lit it, and with a bright hiss, it burst into white fire. The predators backed away, confused and frightened by the sudden light. Jake waved it in circles, shouting and making loud, stomping sounds. Slowly, the creatures began to retreat. One by one, they disappeared into the woods. Jake didn't stop until the last eye vanished into the shadows. He stood there, breathing hard, hands shaking. Behind him, Elia stared in silence. He turned to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded slowly. "Why? Did you run?" he asked, voice soft. I got scared," she whispered. "You moved fast, like the others did. I thought you would change." Jake knelt beside her. "I won't change. I'm not like the ones who hurt you." She looked down. "Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I remember too much." He nodded. "That's okay." They sat together for a long time, the fire flare still smoking between them. Elia finally spoke. "You protected me. You could have run, but you stayed." "I told you I'm not a monster," Jake said with a small smile. She looked at the sharp stick still in his hand. You kill for me? Jake shook his head. I protect. Big difference. Her eyes locked with his. Something shifted in that moment. Trust became real. She stood up and reached out, offering him his jacket back. He shook his head. Keep it. You need it more. She held it tighter. Then for the first time, she smiled. Not wide, not long, but real. Jake smiled back. We should head back, he said. Safer near the camp. Elia nodded, and this time she walked beside him. The sun rose slowly over the tall alien trees, painting the leaves in soft orange light. Jake walked ahead, gently pushing branches aside. Elia walked close behind, her steps quiet but steady. She still kept a little space between them, but now she didn't flinch every time he looked back. The girl who once begged not to be eaten was now choosing to stay near him, and that meant something. Back at the camp, the fire pit was cold. Jake got to work, rebuilding it with dry wood. Elia crouched down and helped, placing small sticks, the way she had seen him do the night before. She didn't speak, but her hands worked fast and her eyes followed every move. You've done this before? Jake asked. She nodded. Long time ago. With my father. Jake said nothing more. He knew better than to press for painful memories. Later, he boiled water in a small pot. From his pack, he pulled out dried roots, a few herbs, and some grain-like seeds he had found weeks ago. It wasn't much, but it would make a simple soup. Elia sniffed the scent as it cooked. Her eyes softened. Jake handed her the first bowl. You first. She blinked. But it's yours. He smiled. I can make more. Elia hesitated, then took the bowl with both hands. She sipped slowly, eyes half closed as if she was afraid the warm taste would vanish. She didn't speak while eating, but after finishing she looked at him and said, Thank you, Jake. It was the first time she had said his name. He gave her a nod. You're welcome, Elia. That afternoon, they worked together. Jake repaired the shelter he had built using old wreckage and thick leaves. It had enough space for two now. Elia helped him weave long vines into the frame, using a skill her people once used to build tree huts. She taught him how to make the knots tighter and stronger. You learn fast, she said softly. I have a good teacher, Jake replied. She looked away quickly, but he saw the small smile that formed on her lips. As the sun lowered again, they sat near the fire. Elia drew shapes in the dirt with a stick, curved lines, circles. She explained they were from her language. Her people believed in balance. Every line had meaning, and every shape told a story. Jake listened carefully. He told her about Earth, the mountains, the rain, the oceans. He described animals, cities, music, even pizza. She tilted her head at that word. Pizza? She asked. Jake laughed. Yeah, flat bread, cheese, tomatoes. You'd love it. She smiled again. I want pizza, he chuckled. Someday. Then he noticed something. Her voice was no longer shaking. That night, Elia didn't sleep far away. She laid her sleeping mat just a few steps from his. She even helped set the firewood in a better pattern before lying down. She said it would burn longer and brighter this way. She was right. Jake stayed awake for a while, watching the stars. The sky was wide and filled with unfamiliar constellations, but somehow he felt less lost. Elia had changed something in him just as he had changed something in her. In the middle of the night, a sound woke him. Elia. She sat up, breathing hard, whispering in her language. Elia? Jake sat up. Are you okay? She didn't answer. Right away. Her hands gripped the blanket, her eyes were wide. A dream, she finally said. They came. Again. My mother. Screaming. Fire. Chains. I couldn't stop it. Jake didn't move closer, but his voice was calm. It's over. You're safe here. She nodded, but her hand still shook. Do you want to talk about it? He asked. Elia took a deep breath. I was hidden, under roots. I heard her cry, then silence, then only fire. When I came out, no one left, just ashes. I ran. I've been running since. Jake lowered his head. I'm sorry, Elia. I hate being afraid, she whispered. But it stays, even when I'm safe. Jake replied, You're not alone anymore. She looked at him. Why do you help me? Jake thought for a moment. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. They didn't speak after that. She lay back down slowly. But now her eyes didn't look so scared. In the morning, they began collecting food together. Elia showed him how to tell safe berries from bitter ones. She knew which plants had water stored in their roots. Her knowledge of the land was deep, past, down from generations. Jake taught her how to use the scanner to track movement and danger. He gave her a small blade just in case. By evening, their camp looked stronger, safer. The bond between them was no longer a fragile thread. It had become something real. And in the silence of a deadly world, a strange friendship had begun to grow between a lonely human and a hunted herbivore alien. The wind changed that morning. Jake noticed it first. The birds didn't sing. The forest felt too still, like it was holding its breath. He checked the motion scanner, no alerts, but his gut told him something was wrong. Elia noticed too. She stopped smiling. Her ears twitched. Her eyes kept scanning the treetops. Something's coming, she whispered, holding her small blade tight. Jake nodded. Let's pack fast. They grabbed what they could, dried food, tools, water containers, and kicked dirt over the fire. As they moved, Jake's eyes caught a faint glimmer in the sky. It was far, almost hidden by clouds, a blinking red light. Not a bird, not a storm, a ship. They didn't speak again. They just ran. An hour later, they hid under thick roots near a rocky slope. Breaths shallow. The sound of engines grew louder. A dark ship sliced through the clouds and landed deep within the forest. It was small, fast, made for hunting. Bounty hunters. Jake watched as armored figures stepped out. Their skin was rough, grayish-blue. Their helmets flashed. Each held a scanning device and large plasma rifles. They weren't explorers. They were trackers. And they were here for something, or someone. Elia. Jake whispered, They found out you're alive. Her voice trembled. They always come. When someone sees one of us, word spreads. We're rare now. We're prizes. Jake's jaw tightened. Not today. They waited until the hunters moved deeper into the trees. Then Jake led her toward a hidden spot he had found weeks ago, a cave covered in vines, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Inside, the air was cool and damp. A stream trickled quietly across the floor. It was small but safe. You stay here, Jake said. I'll lead them away. Elia's eyes widened. No. Jake placed a hand gently on her shoulder. They won't stop until they catch something. If they see me running, they'll follow. You could die, she whispered. So could you, Jake replied. But I won't let that happen. He left before she could say more. Outside, he moved quickly, stepping loudly, breaking branches, leaving tracks on purpose. When he was sure, he was in range. He fired a flare into the sky. Within minutes, the hunters came. Jake ran. They chased him like wolves, their scanners locked on his trail. Trees flew past as he sprinted downhill, heart pounding. A plasma blast hit a tree beside him, spraying bark in all directions. He dove and rolled, scrambled back up and kept running. He led them far from the cave, across the river, over the rocks, through thorns and deep brush. Then suddenly he vanished. Jake had planned this. He climbed high into a tree and waited. Below, the hunters split up, scanning the ground. One passed right under him. Jake dropped silently, landing behind him, and struck with a thick branch. The hunter fell, dazed. Jake grabbed the rifle and ran again. He didn't want to kill, but he'd do whatever it took to protect her. After hours of running and hiding, Jake made his way back. His arms were scraped, his legs weak, but he didn't stop. He crawled into the cave, panting. Elia rushed to him. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine," he said. They didn't follow me back. She helped clean his wounds with water from the stream. Her hands shook, but she didn't cry. "They won't leave," she said. "They'll search until they find me." "Then we'll stop hiding," Jake replied. "We'll fight back." Elia looked unsure. "How?" "I'm small. I'm weak." Jake shook his head. "You're not weak. You survived alone in a world full of killers. That takes strength." She looked at him, really looked. "And you? Why risk your life for me?" Jake smiled tiredly. "Because the world already took too much from you. I won't let it take more." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the sky turned red as evening fell. Then Elia stood. "I know something," she said. "A place from my people. Long ago, we built it to trap sky beasts. It's old, but maybe it still works." Jake raised an eyebrow. "A trap?" She nodded. "A big one. Big enough for a ship." He grinned. "Lead the way." And for the first time since they met, Elia walked in front, head high, eyes clear. The girl who once begged not to be eaten was no longer afraid. Now she had something to protect, too. The sky was turning gold again as Elia led Jake through, the thick trees moving with a speed and confidence he hadn't seen before. Her eyes scanned the forest ahead like she remembered every rock and path. Her fear had changed. It wasn't gone, but it had turned into something stronger. Purpose. Jake limped a little behind her, the bruises from his escape still fresh, but he didn't complain. He watched her carefully. This wasn't the same girl who once cried inside a trap and begged him not to eat her. This was someone who had decided to fight. After hours of walking, they reached a clearing hidden by tall grass and strange, twisting plants. In the middle stood a deep pit covered by faded stone and moss. Broken metal rings hung from poles around it, ancient tech from another time. Vines curled over strange crystal shapes that glowed faintly. "This is it," Elia said. "My father brought me here once when I was small. He said it was a place of defense, a last option." Jake walked around the edge, brushing off moss, to see underneath. "It's a ship snare, some kind of gravity net system. If it still works, we could pull their ship down right into the pit." Elia nodded. "The crystals fuel the trap. They charge in sunlight." Jake pulled out a scanner. The signal was weak, but it confirmed the tech still had some power. "We might have one shot. If the bounty hunters return to their ship before the trap is ready, we lose them forever." Elia looked at him. "Then we don't wait. We make them come back." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking like a soldier. Now, I'm thinking like someone with something to protect," she replied, eyes steady. They worked fast, cleaning the moss, reconnecting loose metal strands and setting bait. Jake's flare beacon, placed just beyond the pit, set to blink every 10 seconds. As night crept over the forest, the crystals began to pulse faint blue. The snare was charging. The air around it felt heavier. They hid in the tall grass nearby, breathing quietly. The weight felt endless. Then came the sound, engines, low and sharp, moving through the sky. "They're coming," Jake whispered. The bounty ship appeared above the trees, hovering. Light scanned the forest floor. The blinking beacon caught their attention and the ship slowly lowered, exactly above the trap. Jake reached for the trigger. Elia placed her hand on his. "Now." He pressed it. A silent pulse of light burst from the pit. The ship shook, its engines failed, and it dropped like a stone, straight into the snare. The ground trembled. A loud crash echoed through the woods. Jake and Elia didn't wait. They rushed down toward the wreckage. Smoke rose from the crushed hull. The front doors hissed open, and one of the bounty hunters staggered out, dazed but alive. He raised his weapon, but Jake fired first, stunning him with the stolen plasma rifle. 2 more followed. Elia darted behind them and struck with a heavy branch, knocking one off balance. Jake tackled the other, forcing the rifle from his hands. Soon, it was over. 3 bounty hunters lay unconscious or tied. The 4th never made it out of the ship. Jake turned to Elia, breathing hard. We did it, but Elia wasn't smiling. She stood over one of the stunned hunters, eyes wide, body frozen. Jake stepped closer. What is it? This one, she whispered. He was at my village. Jake's face hardened. She crouched beside the alien, her voice trembling. He dragged my mother by her hair, laughed while she screamed. He burned our home. Jake said nothing. He saw her shoulders tighten, her hands clench. She looked at Jake. What do I do? He knelt beside her. That's up to you. Her voice broke. Part of me wants him to feel what we felt, but then I remember you. You didn't hurt me when you could have. Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. Mercy doesn't make you weak, Elia. It means you're still free. Elia stared at the hunter, her heart full of anger and in pain and memory. But slowly she stood. She turned away. He doesn't deserve my hate, she said softly. He doesn't get to control me anymore. Jake nodded. They dragged the prisoners far from the camp and left a signal beacon. It would call. A patrol ship eventually. Someone would find them, and maybe this time justice would follow. As the stars appeared above, Elia and Jake returned to the camp in silence. That night, she sat beside him by the fire, her hands warm around a cup of soup. You had every reason to fear me, Jake said. But you stayed. She looked at him. You had every reason to leave me, but you didn't. Jake smiled. Guess that makes us even. She smiled back. And in that moment, they both knew. This was no longer just survival. It was something more. Morning light touched the treetops, casting golden rays down to the quiet camp where Jake and Elia sat beside the fire, sharing a warm drink. The forest, once filled with danger and fear, now felt calm. Not safe, not completely, but calmer. The ship trap had worked. The bounty hunters were gone, and something between them had changed forever. Jake fixed the blade on his small hunting tool while Elia sharpened sticks for gathering roots. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. There was a rhythm now, like they had lived together, for years instead of days. She moved with quiet confidence, her eyes alert but no longer filled with fear. He watched her with a quiet pride he didn't fully understand. Later that day, they went deeper into the forest, farther than ever before. Not to run, but to explore. They walked side by side, checking the land for signs of new plants or safer shelter. Elia led the way through thick brush, using her memory of old trails from childhood. Jake followed, trusting her steps completely. They stopped at a cliff that overlooked the valley below. From there, they could see the wreckage of the Bounty, ship in the distance, half swallowed by vines and trees, a reminder of what they had survived. Elia sat down at the edge of the cliff, her legs crossed, eyes on the horizon. When I was small, she said, my father used to bring me here. He'd say, look far, Elia. Far means freedom. I never understood. I thought he meant flying away. But now, I think he meant surviving long enough to choose where you want to go. Jake sat beside her, his arm resting loosely across his knee. You've earned that choice. She looked at him. And you? If you had the chance to leave, to go back to Earth, would you go? Jake hesitated. That question had haunted him for weeks. When his ship first crashed, he dreamed of rescue every night. Going home, seeing blue skies, human faces, city lights. But now, as he sat beside the girl who once begged for her life and now led him through the wild like a guardian, his heart didn't answer the same way. I don't know, he said honestly. Earth doesn't feel like home anymore. Not the way this does. She blinked, surprised. Here? He nodded. Not just the forest. You. Elia looked away, cheeks slightly pink under her soft fur. But I'm not like you. That's why I trust you, Jake said, smiling. You don't think like humans. You think like someone who listens, someone who watches before judging." She gave a soft laugh. "I thought you were going to eat me." "And I thought you were a wild animal at first," Jake admitted. "But now I know better. You're strong, brave. You never gave up, even when you were starving and alone." Elia reached into her bag and pulled out a small carved figure. It looked like a tall, thin tree with two branches reaching up. "This is called a salen. In my culture, we make one when we start a new path. We place it in the ground to show where fear ends and freedom begins." Jake took it gently in his hand, studying the simple lines. "It's beautiful." She smiled. "Let's place it together." They found a quiet spot beneath an old tree, where the ground was soft. Together, they pushed the figure into the soil, side by side. "There," she whispered. "Now we have our beginning." As they walked back toward camp, something rustled in the bushes. Elia froze, instinctively moving in front of Jake, but it wasn't a threat. A small creature, round, soft, with tiny feet and big eyes, popped out and sniffed the air. It looked at Elia, then at Jake, then hopped away. Jake grinned. "Even the forest is learning we're not dangerous." "Or maybe they've heard of the human who walks with herbivores," Elia teased gently. That night they cooked a stew together. They laughed quietly when the pot boiled over. Elia taught Jake a few words in her native language, and he tried, badly, to copy her sounds. She laughed so hard she fell over. He smiled, watching her glow in the firelight. After dinner they lay under the stars. Elia turned her head. "Jake? Yeah? If anyone ever asks me again if I was captured or hunted or saved, I'll say no." Jake looked at her, confused. "You won't?" She shook her head. "I'll say, I found someone. Not a captor. Not a savior. A partner." Jake smiled. "Then I'll say the same." Their fingers touched under the blanket. Two beings. Different in species, in culture, in everything. But equal in pain, in survival, and now, in trust. And on a planet where fear once ruled, a human and an alien girl built something no hunter could ever trap. A friendship, a future, a place to belong. Together.